Hi guys, welcome back to another NBA logo rebrand video, where I show all 30 logos rebranded by an artist and give a little comment about each one. A lot of these logos are really interesting, so stick around, and now let's get right into it. Okay, starting off here with the Atlanta Hawks, we have a very detailed hawk as the main part of this logo. It's very detailed. As you can see each individual feather on the wings, and it's holding a basketball. Obviously it's gray. And in the background behind the hawk is another basketball, which has a blue and red gradient. And overall, this logo has a really cool red and blue color scheme. And I also like how there's wings on the hawk's word, because it's a very interesting and new design. I've never really thought about that, but it's just really awesome and cool. Next up for the Boston Celtics, we have this logo, which features a really scary looking leprechaun. He's kind of like pointing at you like the Uncle Sam posters from, I believe it's one of the wars in the US, where he's like, "We want you," but that's kind of like the leprechaun pointing. It's kind of scary. They also have him holding a basketball, and there's obviously a lot of basketballs overall on this logo on the sides and in the background of the leprechaun. And obviously for the Celtics, you have to have the shamrocks, so it has 4 shamrocks on the outer ring and then a shamrock on the leprechaun's hat. So it's a very cool design. I really like it. Next up for the Brooklyn Nets, as you can see, there's a different style B featured on it. It's not like their normal, usual B. And it also has a little Statue of Liberty on the bottom of it. It's like kind of in the center of the logo. It's really small though for some reason. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but the background, obviously you see a black basketball, but in the background there's like hexagons, I guess, and I think it's supposed to be a net, so it's like really cool. It's like a bird's eye view look of a basketball going into a basketball net. And on the outside of the ring, it says 1967, which is the year the Brooklyn Nets were established. Next up for the Charlotte Hornets, I really love their purple and blue color scheme. I always have. This one features it, obviously. And this logo has an angry hornet holding a basketball, just like pointing or saying stop. I don't know what that's for, but it's pretty cool. And in the background, there's a honeycomb, which makes sense for the Charlotte Hornet. And as you can see, there's on the sides, there's a little queen or little king hornet, like the queen bee, but it's for hornets, you know? So that's a really cool add to this logo. Next up for the Chicago Bulls, obviously right off the bat, you see a really awesome bull redesign. I know Chicago Bulls fans really love the logo, but I think an updated design is really awesome. And in the background, you can just see a plain basketball with a red and black gradient. And on the sides of this logo, you see 2 charging bulls, I guess either jumping or just plain charging, running, which is a really cool add-on to this logo. Next up for the Cleveland Cavaliers, we have a full Cavalier face, like it's a profile shot, and he's wearing the full hat with the feather in it. It's very cool. And on the sides, you can see 2 sabers. And in the background, behind the Cavalier, you see a plain basketball like many of the other logos that are going to be featured here. And I think it's just an overall simple, cool design. The Cavalier kind of looks weird to me, but it's really detailed and it's a cool idea. So next up for the Dallas Mavericks, we see right off the bat a beautiful white stallion featured in this logo. It's just an awesome, really detailed design. And in the background, there's a basketball with a white star. And then on each side of the logo, there's 5 basketballs with the same white star. Let me know why that is. I don't really know why that would be there, but it's a really cool logo nonetheless. Next up for the Denver Nuggets, we see a plain basketball on the bottom, obviously the blue and yellow color. And then above that, there's the 2 classic crossed pickaxes that are featured in a lot of Nuggets logos. And in the background, you can see the Rocky Mountains with snowy peaks, which is a really cool add to this logo. And on the sides, there's just 3 really simple basketballs on both sides of this logo. It's a cool design. Next up for the Detroit Pistons, we see this logo feature a horse silhouette. It's like a little dark blue. I believe that's a bunch of pistons, and that's supposed to be representing horsepower in cars, which makes sense for the Detroit Pistons. And in the background, I don't know if you can tell, but it's actually a basketball with 2 pistons that I believe are crossed. I think those are pistons. And then on the sides of this logo, obviously 1 piston on one side and the other piston on the other. So it's a very cool design and it's very intricate. Next up for the Golden State Warriors, this one features a Warriors mask with a lightning bolt on top of the helmet. I don't really know what a warrior is, but a lot of times that's what they're portrayed as. This logo also features the Golden Gate Bridge on the bottom, and then in the background it's just a simple gray basketball, and on the sides just 2 white basketballs. It's a very simple logo, but it's very cool and it's an interesting design. Next up for the Houston Rockets, we see a red and yellow rocket, and it looks like it's like flying amongst the stars. You can see 4 or 5 stars, the little shapes, the white stars. And what really is interesting about this logo is the black to red gradient in the background of the ball. It just gives a feel of like the rockets leaving the atmosphere. It's going from the Earth's atmosphere to space. I don't know, that's maybe me overthinking it too much. But on the outside ring, it's just very simple for basketballs. Plain and simple. It's a very cool logo. Next up for the Indiana Pacers. This one features a new P design for the Pacers. And behind that, if you can see, there's an outline of the state of Indiana. And then I guess there's like horizontal lines that are outlining it. And behind that, there's actually two perimeters for the three-point line as well as the paints, which is a really interesting design. It's a lot of detail in a small space for this logo, and it's a very cool idea. Next up for the Los Angeles Clippers, we see a Clippers logo, and it looks like it's inside of a ship steering wheel. And behind that, there's a white silhouette of like a ship, a sailing ship, and it's either going towards or away from the logo, I can't really tell, but it's sailing in the water. And in the sky, I guess you can say it's the sky, you can see a white basketball, which is supposed to represent the sun. And overall, this whole entire image is inside of a transparent kind of basketball, which is the red and the blue. It's a very cool design, very creative. I've never seen anything like it. Next up for the Los Angeles Lakers, we see a lot of detail in this logo. First thing you see is a crown on top of the letters LA, Los Angeles obviously. And then behind that, there's like a roll of film, which I believe is supposed to be like basketball players, like maybe a movie about basketball. And obviously behind that, it has a yellow basketball. And then on the sides of this logo, I think is really cool. They added a little director's chair and a clapper, which syncs the audio and the video in like movies and shows and stuff. So this logo is very cool. It's very intricate, very detailed. Awesome. For the Memphis Grizzlies, we see a grizzly bear roaring, which is the main part of this logo. And it's very intimidating. Behind that, there's yellow pine trees representing the woods that bears live in. And then behind that, there's a little part of a basketball. And then on the sides of this logo, which I think is a great ad, is just a bear paw on both sides, which is awesome. Next up for the Miami Heat, we see a basketball that's on fire and it's going into a basketball net. And in the background, you see a yellow basketball. And then on the sides of this logo, you see the MH, which is featured a lot on their like jerseys and their logos that the actual Heat use. So it's a very cool logo. And I think the color scheme is awesome, which I really love the Miami Heat's color scheme. For the Milwaukee Bucks, this one features obviously a buck looking straight towards you. And it says 1968, which is what I believe the year that they were established. Behind that a little bit, there's also a bunch of pine trees. And it makes sense because deer live in the woods, so pine trees would be there. And behind that, there's actually two red bucks. I guess they're striking a pose. It looks very cool. And on the sides of this logo, there's four bucks also making that same pose. It's a very cool logo. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, this one features a howling wolf. It's very detailed. You can see each individual hair of the wolf. Just looking up, obviously towards the moon, I guess. And then around it is like a forest full of trees, which makes sense because wolves also live in forests. And on the sides of this logo, it shows two howling wolves, and it looks like they're looking towards these balls which are in motion. Maybe it's like a shooting star or something, I can't really tell, but it's a very cool logo and it's a very interesting design. For the New Orleans Pelicans, this one features a very, very detailed golden pelican. You can see like each individual feather from its wings. It's a very detailed. You can see the beak, the legs, and the feet. It's very detailed. And behind that, there's a red basketball, which makes sense for their color scheme. And then on the sides of this logo, it has two pelican heads looking to the side, looking away from the logo. And obviously, it's not a New Orleans team without a fleur-de-lis. This one has it. This can be an official New Orleans Pelicans logo if they wanted it to be. It's very cool. Next up for the New York Knicks, this one obviously has NYK for New York Knicks on the bottom of it. And then behind that, you can see some buildings from the famous New York City skyline. It's famous, everyone knows about it. And you can also see Lady Liberty, which makes sense. She's part of New York and part of the culture and part of the city. And in the background, you also see an orange basketball. And on the sides of this logo, it actually has two apples, one on each side. And it's because New York's called the Big Apple, so they got to represent with the apples. Next up for the Oklahoma City Thunder, this one features a basketball going into a hoop. And there's a lot of lightning overall all over this logo. A lot of lightning, especially on this backboard. And there's also 4 lightning bolts on the outside ring of this logo. I don't know why they did lightning. OKC is not called the Oklahoma City Lightning. They're called the Thunder. So Lightning isn't thunder, but I guess you can't represent a sound with picture, so this is the best that they can do, so it's an okay logo. Next up for the Orlando Magic, we see a lot of stars, like a lot of stars. Like there's stars everywhere on this logo. And behind those stars, there's actually a basketball. And behind the basketball, in the background, there's like pinstripes. I think that's alluding to the uniforms they used to wear. They had like white pinstripes on like a bluish black uniform, which is pretty cool. And obviously, you have to have more stars. So there's a lot of stars in this logo. For the Phoenix Suns, this one features a really detailed phoenix on it, like the Firebird. Behind that, there's a purple basketball, and behind the basketball, there's actually like, I think that's fire. I guess it's fire. I think it's supposed to be showing how the sun is just a huge ball of fire. And then on the sides of this logo, it says 1968 for the year that they were established. Next up for the Philadelphia 76ers, this one features obviously the 76ers words. I think it's like a really cool font. I've never seen anything like that. It's very cool to me. Behind that, the classic Liberty Bell. It's a safe bet for any Philadelphia logo, for any Philadelphia team. And around that, there's actually 13 stars, which is representing the 13 colonies in the United States before the United States was actually like a country. And behind all that is actually like a small grayish white basketball, which is obviously showing that they're a basketball team. It's a very cool logo. For the Portland Trailblazers, we have a gray basketball, which is on fire, I guess with white fire. Not really sure what that's for. And then behind that, there's like a normal Trailblazers logo. I don't really understand this logo much. If you guys could explain it to me why everything is like that, I'm not really sure. Maybe ask the artist, I don't know. But it's an interesting design nonetheless. For the Sacramento Kings, this one actually is very cool. It features a king on a horse charging into battle. I think it's supposed to represent in like medieval times. Kings used to lead their kingdoms into battle during times of war. And behind that, there's actually a detailed crown. And behind this crown, there's actually just like a light purple basketball, which finishes off this logo. It's very cool. Next up for the San Antonio Spurs, this one features obviously a spur from a cowboy boot. And then in the background, there's like a wagon with two cacti representing the Texas desert. And I guess it's nighttime because there's a few stars above that. And faintly, you can see a gray basketball, which makes sense because it's a basketball team. For the Toronto Raptors, there's actually a really angry raptor holding a basketball as the main part of this logo. Behind that, there's actually just a purple ball in the background. And on the side of this logo, there's actually just 4 Raptors footprints. For the Utah Jazz, there's actually a saxophone for the J of the Jazz part. And behind that, there's actually a mountain representing the mountains in Utah with a basketball on the bottom of it, a green one as you can see. And above the mountain, there's actually a bunch of music notes floating around, and on the sides, there's a bunch of music notes representing jazz music and the Utah Jazz. Finally, for the Washington Wizards, we see a profile shot of an angry wizard who has, in my opinion, a really cool beard. And on the bottom right, there's actually just a plain red basketball. And this logo in general is just one of the more simpler logos out of all of them that I've shown you guys so far. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Make sure you press the like button, subscribe if you're new, and share this video with someone. Let me know which logo out of all of these was your favorite and which one was your least favorite. And if you haven't seen this video or this video, I highly recommend it, so click on one of them.